Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
Yes.
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! And Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard and welcome back on this Monday. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. There's a lot going on in the sports world, and we're ready to get to it. Appreciate you being with us. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda, of course. On the program today, of course, Don Fischer will join us, Dustin Dopirak, and as usual, we start off with the hardest working sports broadcaster in the state of Indiana, Greg Rakestraw, baby. Greg, how are you?
Good morning, my friend. Because of the holidays, it's been a few weeks. Good to see you, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, it has. Happy New Year. Happy holidays to you and your family. Hope everything went well. I'm sure it did not slow down, though, your workload.
It did a little bit last week, and that was by design. So, obviously, if you're in the high school sports business, now everybody plays a high school tournament. And so we're fortunate enough on ISC to be able to produce the Hall of Fame Classic, the Phil Cox event in Kokomo, the Paul Logan event at North Central. We actually had a day where we produced 16 basketball games in one day. That was Friday, December the 29th. It's not like we're digging ditches for a living, but those are some long days. So very much intentionally, we kind of took about a 4-day break to start the new year, picked it back up with 4 doubleheaders on Friday night. And now we kind of get back into our usual basketball flow where it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, at least weather permitting. That's what's on the schedule coming up this week.
And I don't know that there is a network of ISC like ISC Sports anywhere else in the country, any other state in the country that probably broadcasts as many, first of all, as many different types of productions, but specifically high school events and sports as you guys do.
Well, first of all, thank you for that. But secondly, that's just being in Indiana. And guys like Kyle Neddenrip and I think are very lucky in that we can be based in what is clearly a major professional sports market in Indianapolis. But there is a niche that we can carve out to primarily, kind of take care of our living from a high school standpoint, because there is that level of statewide interest in the sport. So part of it is I've got very talented people around me. But frankly, if there was not an audience for this, we couldn't be doing this. So part of it's just the luck that we have of being here in central Indiana.
Well, you and certainly you mentioned Kyle Nedrip, who joins us each Wednesday from the Indy Star. Job security is not a problem for either of you two. And I tell that to Kyle all the time. I'm like, dude, there's nobody that works harder than he does. I mean, he knows more about, and you're in that same category. So many different schools, it's crazy. But over the holidays, there's usually tournaments going on, like you said. And some of the ones that have been around for a while. Anything of note that you had, that things that happened that you were great games or of the making?
From the holiday tournament standpoint, part of it is I was impressed by both South Bend Riley and Jeffersonville. Now, they played in Kokomo's tournament, then played each other in the Fischer's tournaments. Both those two teams kind of double dipped. And when you're a 4A school outside of Indianapolis, that's exactly what you should do. Obviously Jeffersonville now has 6 conference games that they play, with Madison dropping out of the Hoosier Hills. South Bend Riley's league in the Northern Indiana Conference is a little bit bigger. It's going to contract a little bit this coming year. But if you think you've got a legitimate chance of making a deep tournament run, you need to get either upstate or downstate and find a way to play out some of the other best teams in the state and see, okay, how exactly do we measure up? Now, Jeffersonville only pulled 1 win in 3 games in Fischer's after getting to the championship game in Kokomo. I know Brownstown Central, with Jack Benner back, got them on Saturday night. Jack missed the Hall of Fame Classic. Jack missed a couple of games before Christmas. And I'm not sure he's going to be 100% all year, but they could also win 2A without him being 100%. That's how good he is, and that's how good the team around him is at Brownstown Central in the 2A level. But it is kind of reaffirmed that there's a lot of good 4A teams this year. And if you look at the coaches poll, on the top of the 4A poll, it's very Central Indiana dominated, and that's understandable. But I do think there is a better dispersal of talent around the state of Indiana, maybe in all classifications, but especially in the two larger classifications than we've had in the last several years.
And Jeffersonville, coached by our good friend Sharon Wilkerson, who joins the show periodically, and someone who I just have so much respect for, that has just really turned things around in his life and everything. Just what a great story he is. And to have gone full circle and to come back and be the head coach of Jeffersonville, for people who don't know that whole thing, it's awesome. That is one of the great stories, sports stories or not. And I love every time we have Sharon on. He is one of the kindest, most gentle people that you're ever going to meet now.
Funny thing is, couple things. Watching his team play, because I had them twice. I think I did. Maybe it's only once. But we had him 3 times on ISC. A, I was very impressed by his team. B, his voice can cut through walls. And Lord knows mine is like that too. But it was no problem to hear him barking out orders from the sidelines, not too far in front of us. But if you miss the days of old school Indiana University motion offense basketball, that's exactly what that group runs at Jeffersonville. So, you saw mid-range games. I really like the Singleton kid's game. I do think he's a Division I level talent. And the Rose kid, is their only senior like him as a point guard. 4 juniors sort of around him. I thought the Cooper kid was really impressive. I realize I referenced the fact that Brownstown got him. Well, I know the Friday night game, how big that was for Jeffersonville. So that might have been a little trap game this weekend. And the crowds that you expect when Jeff and New Albany get together were so wonderful to see, kind of around the state of Indiana on Friday night. So Jeff's got a good team. And if they don't make a deep tournament run this year, I certainly think they're very capable of doing something like that or beyond next year as well.
Look forward to seeing that. As far as NFL goes, the Colts, man, I can't say it's surprising because it was a do or die situation with a team that was in the same exact position. And to see them go down like that on Saturday, I'm sure a lot of Colts fans were gravely disappointed. But they were way beyond their expectations coming into this season. To even be in that position with a backup quarterback was crazy, but to be that close, to come down to one stinking play on top of that, 4th and 1. I mean, I was like, damn, I'm trying to think back. When did somebody's season really come down to that last around here? But to come down on that final play was nuts, and they could not make it happen. So Indianapolis not going to make the playoffs this year.
No, and again, I think most people that called the post-game show Saturday night into early Sunday morning, most had really good perspective because, again, this team improved by 5 wins, and that doesn't happen very often in the National Football League. And the way that we tried to talk about it or discuss it is think about how you felt about this team 52 weeks ago when there was nothing that was for certain. You knew there would be a new head coach. You wasn't sure who that was going to be. You knew there'd be a new quarterback. You were not sure whom that was going to be. You have far more answers now than you did at this time a year ago, even if there are still question marks about the quarterback, not who it's going to be. And it's not going to be Gardner Minshew. And that has nothing to do with how he played on Saturday night. He did not have his best game on Saturday night. But even if he had, this was going to be Anthony Richardson's team. And I think that Gardner has done enough to where he is going to be a starting quarterback for somebody else next year. So I do not think that he is back here. There will be some growing pains with the new quarterback. But at the same time, I want you to kind of notice the trend around the National Football League, how it started to go back to being more of a rushing game, a run-the-ball game out of multiple formations. Think about the way the Colts ran the football, 227 yards on Saturday night, against the team that's rated 3rd in the NFL in terms of rushing defense in the Houston Texans. Now I want you to add a dynamic running threat at quarterback to go along with that. And so Are there going to be some missteps by a guy who's kind of like a redshirt freshman next year is the best way to put it for Anthony Richardson? I'm sure there will be. But at the same and does he have to make sure he learns how to avoid those big hits better? Obviously, as he took 2 of them in 5 games, and that was the end of his season. But I still think that he can be a rushing threat, effective when necessary. And now you know that Jonathan Taylor is going to be paired with him. I mean, they basically were on the field together for a quarter this past year. Yeah, so again, I'm very bullish on the future of this football team. And now knowing the other phrase I used, Jim, in the post-game show on Saturday is that last year we were worried about the macro. Now it's the micro. Now it's fine-tuning at a couple of positions. And then next year, no excuses. Be a playoff team, compete for the AFC South Championship.
Shane Steichen, I don't know if he's in the conversation for Coach of the Year because not many coaches that do not make the playoffs win Coach of the Year. But if you were looking at all the variables, he probably would very well be in that conversation for real because nobody expected this. I don't think, especially when Anthony Richardson went down, it was kind of over for most Colts fans, I think. Not playoffs. We're not a part of, I normally do my invitation there, but I'm going to give it a break on this one because that would have been the real time to use it. But most people just kind of poo-pooed that. But man, you've got to give Gardner Minshew a lot of credit, and he certainly gave himself a great resume builder to go off into possibly being on a different team next season.
From the Coach of the Year standpoint, again, you said it well. You're not going to win the Coach if you don't make the playoffs. So I think it's now. I really think it's going to be Dan Campbell's anyway. I mean, my goodness, when you have won a division for 30 years, I think that's going to be you. D'Amico Ryans, would probably come in next in that group. Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. I saw this stat trotted around that I never refer to them as this, but it makes sense. The 3 Lake Erie teams, Buffalo, Detroit, and Cleveland, have never made the playoffs all simultaneously until this year. All 3 of those teams did that with the way the results fell. So, again, Shane Steichen is not going to be Coach of the Year, but he's a pretty good fit for the coach of the Indianapolis Colts, and that's all I concern myself with at this point.
Absolutely. So what comes up next for you guys? I know you switched pretty much now to all high school.
Correct. I mean, we'll do a lot of stuff with Marian University, so I'll see them on Wednesday night. I still do the IUPUI game. So, for example, I've got a triple header on Wednesday. IUPUI plays another noon matinee game at Wednesday against Green Bay. Then I've got the arduous drive. By arduous, I mean 5 minutes to go from the Indiana Farmers Coliseum to Marian University as Marian has a doubleheader against Bethel. Thursday night, I see 2 of the top girls teams in the state, Lawrence North, Lawrence Central, both in the top 8 as of this week. We'll have that game on Thursday. Marion County semifinals on Friday night. Teams to be determined, but likely a mix of Lawrence North, Ben Davis, North Central down at Southport Field. I think you can go there for a couple of games. You feel pretty lucky about it. And then on Saturday night, again, because we've missed him the first 3 times, we've had Brownstown Central on 3 times on ISC, and we're 0 for 3 in getting Jack Benner. So I am hopeful the fact that he played both games this past weekend for Brownstown Central means that we'll see him and the Braves against Carmel coming up on Saturday night. And then a new concept for me, Jim, a Sunday off. It has officially gotten to that time of year.
It's here, baby. Next time I want to talk about, I just wrote this down, but what is more historical in this state and within miles of each other, the Farmers Coliseum or Hinkle Fieldhouse? I don't know if people know all the history behind the Farmers Coliseum is the thing. Everybody knows about Hinkle. I don't know they realize all the history that has happened at the Farmers Coliseum. And I look forward to talking about that because
we can do that. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version when you got another guest in the top of the hour break coming up. But one was built in 1928. The other was built in 1941. So there's plenty of time for me to give you a history lesson on that and your listeners as of next Monday.
Yeah, look forward to it, man, and look forward to seeing you again, man. Make sure you go to the ISC Sports Network to keep up with everything they have going on and with Greg Rakestraw's busy schedule. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Great to see you again.
Thanks, Jim. And by the way, it did not go unnoticed on me. The Kurt Signetti addition to the Open. Well done. Nicely played.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you, brother. Hey, Greg Rakestraw from the ISC Sports Network. Make sure you give him a follow and are tuning in. We've got Don Fischer coming up next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with that and much more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Right.
He, man, this is a dude that relishes.
I saw
Man,
he
he's not-
had another, I mean, not like a moment, but he revealed himself at the basketball game again.
Well, they announced him. He was sitting courtside, and that's exactly what I was getting ready to talk about. He was sitting courtside. Hey, Don, how are you?
Good, Jim.
I was just talking about Kurt Signetti. So he was sitting courtside for the game the other night, and they announced him. And not only once he realized it, he started to acknowledge it. Then he says, "To hell with that." And he stands up. He just says, "Yes." And really took it in. And it's like, man, he does not miss an opportunity, baby. He is trying to reel this in.
There's no question he is. He's an energetic guy, and I'm telling you, he's a 24/7 workaholic too.
And I was sitting next to Pete at the basketball game. I just turned to him. I go, man, oh man, he's going to be something to deal with.
Yeah, he's a quirky guy. He's a little bit quirky, and but there's no doubt he's confident in what he's doing, and he's confident in his program and the formula that he has that he works out. It's going to be fun. He's going to be fun to be a part of.
Yes, it's definitely created a lot of excitement, and well, the fact that like last week, I'm like, man, it's January and we're talking about Indiana football. I'm like, what the hell is the sky falling? What's going on? And but it's with a lot of excitement that he's brought to the program. But how was your weekend?
It was much better than the previous couple of days prior to that weekend, since we won a ball game, which was pretty critical.
It always helps. An important one at that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no doubt.
In my opinion, you got to steal Rutgers on the road next, since they're bottom of the Big Ten right now.
Yeah, you can't lose that one.
No, we've lost every time we've gone out there since 2018, kids. So just so you know.
Man, 6 years.
Yep.
Not as bad as Wisconsin.
Does that still date back to pre-Crane?
It dates back to the first time the Kohl Center was built. We won the first game there in 1998. We haven't won since.
Oh, my gosh. What a record. All right, here we go. Just a few seconds.
You need to make a gourmet meal at home, or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, January 8th. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you as always. Now, the great Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, with us. And Don, it was a busy weekend. Indiana men's team getting a gigantic win. Well, I shouldn't call it a gigantic win, but it was an important win over a very, very good Ohio State team. And Indiana currently finds themselves in a three-way tie for second place in the league at 3-1, which is much better place than a lot of other teams are. And it was a weird game. I know in talking about it afterwards, it was hard to put your finger on what it was like, okay, well, that was kind of odd. Indiana gets out rebounded by 1,000. Really, it was like 49-27, I think. Yeah, that's exactly what it was, which was astounding.
That'd be 22, not 1,000.
Yeah, it seemed like 1,000. But to win a game, you get out rebounded by that much was crazy. And then, but on the other hand, Indiana took a limited number of turnovers from Ohio State, and man, did they make hay off of those things. So they did some things that they haven't done, but whatever it took, it got the job done.
Well, there's no question. The thing that I liked was the return of Xavier Johnson to his previous form compared to what he did in the Nebraska game leading up to the Ohio State contest, because his first time out against Nebraska, it looked like he was a lost puppy. He was trying to do way too much, especially considering playing with his teammates for the first time, and probably only getting two or three practices in prior to playing that ball game. And I don't think they were physical practices for him because they were making sure that he didn't have some kind of a problem with the foot. But at the same time, I mean, this guy went out there on Saturday night against Ohio State, and I thought he just performed brilliantly. He was smart. He didn't try to force things. When he did go, like a helter-skelter to the basket, he was under control. He just played really good basketball and didn't have a single turnover in the ball game, which was a huge change from what Indiana did in that Nebraska game, because that's why they lost to Nebraska. Turned it over 19 times, gave up 27 points off those turnovers. Just a horrible performance from Indiana in that contest. And defensively in the game against Ohio State, they shut them down. I mean, that's a good Ohio State shooting basketball team. And in the second half of that game, they held them to 27%, I think it was. It was really a good defensive performance. And then they got something off the bench that they haven't had but one other time this year. That was C.J. Gunn performing like he was really knew what he was doing out there. And I don't want to put C.J. down in that regard, because sometimes he just gets in there and he goes 100 miles an hour. He's not under control. He shoots bad shots. In this game, he was 4 for 7, 1 of 2 from the three-point line. Scored 10 points, played good at the defensive end, under control, kept the guy in front of him, which is what he sometimes doesn't do. He gets up into a guy and the guy goes right around him instead of just hanging back a little bit and using his athleticism and his length to help him play defense. In this game, he did that, and he got to stay on the floor, and he really performed well. So there were some real pluses coming out of this ball game.
Yeah, and going back to Xavier, he plays 34 minutes in his second game back. That's a lot, first of all. But he was so unbelievably efficient. 18 points, 4 of 9 shooting, 2 of 2 behind the arc. But he got to the free throw line to shoot 11 free throws, hit 8 of those, and so but the no turnovers on top of that for Indiana, and they only had 1 in the entire second half, 4 for the ball game. And that was and you talk about return to form. I just watching him, I remember he was bringing the ball up the floor once, and then he just hit a gear, and it's like wham, he just starts passing people. Indiana has not had that since he's been out, and that makes things difficult for defenses. You have to adjust for a guy that just blows by you.
Well, I think it points out how much this team has missed him since he was not on the floor. They missed him all of last year, basically. I mean, he played in the 11th game is when he got hurt. And when he wasn't there, Indiana just didn't have that same burst that Xavier Johnson has at both ends of the floor. And this year, now they lose him for the whole month of December, playing some of their toughest games, and he's not there. And it factors into this ball club. There's no question about it. And Gabe Cupps is a wonderful addition to this team, but he is not Xavier Johnson yet. And he will be at some point, because he is a smart kid. He knows how to play, and he'll get the ball where it needs to go. And obviously, I think he'll improve his shooting as well. But when you haven't got a guy like Xavier Johnson on your team, to help run the show. And let's face it, he's an alpha male. He's the guy running the show. He knows he's the guy running the show, and he wants to run the show. And you have to have that player out there. And Indiana has missed that a lot. So with Xavier back, and if he continues to perform like he did in this game against Ohio State, Indiana's going to be just fine.
Yeah, and Indiana can start to build on that. They were kind of in a no man's land prior to that without Xavier. They weren't really, the offense was just not improving. It was just kind of in a spin cycle, and now you can see some improvement. But that's going to open up a lot of things for a lot of different guys, whether it's Mackenzie Mbako, Khalil Ware, whomever, Malik, no matter whom it might be. But when you've got a guy that can just do so many different things, not forgetting the defense, the defensive part along with that, and the growth of CJ Gunn, huge. His confidence, you could see, man, it grew in that game.
Well, let's hope it continues that way, because consistency hasn't been his strong suit. If CJ can play like that and continue to improve, can shoot that way, because 4 of 7 for him, that's like lights out. That's like lights out shooting, and he's known as a shooter. He was known as a shooter through high school, but he has not performed that way in the year plus that he's been at Indiana. And finally, he comes into his own in this ball game against Ohio State. Hopefully that spins him into a positive cycle for the rest of the year, because there's no doubt his athleticism, his length, he's 6'6", he's quick. His biggest problem defensively is getting into guys and then having them go right around him, because he gets lost on defense sometimes. You got to understand the concepts of defensive basketball, and communication is such a critical thing. I think that's one of the reasons Nebraska blew him away, because there was no communication defensively in that ball game. And they just didn't have and the switches, they didn't execute the game plan defensively. And Woodson has talked about this ad nauseum at this point with this ball club, about what they have to do to be a good defensive team. This team is his worst thus far. I mean, out of the 3 seasons he's been at Indiana, this team right now looks to be one that's not playing the same kind of defense as the first 2 years. If these guys get back to playing that kind of defense consistently, they're going to be trouble for everybody. But that's a big key. And right now, we're not seeing it on a consistent basis.
No, we did see some toughness in the game against Ohio State. They had to dig back after getting down, and they did so. Now they have to go on the road to a place that has not been friendly to them, although this is not the type of Rutgers teams that Indiana has faced here of late. They're not quite as strong, but it's still a road game in the Big Ten, which is always a tough task. But this is a game that Indiana could really do itself some great good by sneaking out of there with a win, not just in the conference race, but just overall for themselves, for their overall tournament resume. Because anytime you can sneak out a road win, man, you have to grab it, because it's going to be tough going in this conference this year. But this is a great opportunity for them to follow up on what they did the other night.
Well, it is. And the fact that Rutgers is 0-3 in the league at this point, has struggled a little bit this year, but here's what they're going to face. They're going to face a team that believes they can beat Indiana, because they've been able to do it since 2018. It's a ball club that Steve Peichel is one of those guys. He gets his kids to play as hard as anybody in the league, and they are very good at the defensive end. And the Omoro kid, I'm spacing on how to pronounce his name, Omorie. That's how we used to pronounce it, because they've changed it twice since I've been here, since I've been doing Rutgers games. But
it must rhyme with an award.
Well, Clifford is his first name, and we're going to call him Clifford for this purpose right now. But at any rate, that guy is a shot blocking guy. He's a great rebounder. He's a physical presence out there. He's going to give Khalil Ware trouble. And Khalil had some problems in this ball game against Felix Akpara for Ohio State. He did not play his best basketball game because of Akpara and how he played at the contest. That was one of the reasons Indiana got out rebounded in this game, 49-27, because Khalil wasn't as effective as he needs to be. And obviously, Akpara changed the whole game situation from a Khalil perspective. I mean, Khalil just didn't do well against this guy, and it's going to be kind of the same scenario against Omorie if, in fact, he can't play his normal game. So that's the one thing Khalil's got to get used to, too, the physicality of this Big Ten. And when it's been physical for him, he has struggled a little bit.
Absolutely. So, and this game is tomorrow night, so it comes quick for Indiana. They have to bounce back from that win and just forget about that one and go think about winning on the road in a place where they've had great difficulty. But like I said, this would be huge for Indiana. Currently sitting in a three-way tie for second in the league at 3-1 with Purdue. And I forget whom else. I was just looking at that. But this would just a 4-1 start in the league with a home game coming would be great for that Indiana team.
Well, there's no doubt. Right now, you've got to win this ball game. There's no question, because Rutgers is not what they have been. They're just not as good as they've been in the past years. But we know how difficult it is to win at the RAC. It's going to be another test, to say the least. They're going to play really hard at the defensive end. They've struggled to score the basketball. You can't allow them to get out and start shooting threes. And here's the thing. Everybody in this league, it seems to me, with the exception of Indiana, can shoot a volume number of three-point shots. I mean, the last 5 games that Indiana has played, 4 of those games, teams shot 32 or more threes against them. I mean, that's just phenomenal. If you think about the numbers involved here, we're talking about 3-point shots now, 32 to 38 3-point shots in the 4 of the last 5 ball games, and 27 of those shots were taken by Ohio State, and Indiana shut them down. So when you think about what Indiana is able to do defensively when they're on the same page, that's huge. If they can get the rebounding thing taken care of, and I think that they will, and that's something certainly I'm sure Mike Woodson has emphasized here the last couple of days of practice. I think this team with X back and playing the kind of basketball he played, but that's what it's going to take. It's not going to be, you can't have letdowns and you can't have guys that aren't performing at the defensive end, but it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, the rebounding, I think, partly is because of all those 3-point shots. You get some weird bounces, but at the same time, Indiana was really breaking toward the basket defensively a lot against Ohio State. So while Ohio State was crashing the boards and successfully coming up with the ball a lot of the time. So that seemed to be part of the reason there. And sometimes it worked out. We saw some breakouts, runs by Indiana, several, but that disparity in rebounds, that's going to get you beat in a lot of games.
There's no doubt. Rebounding has been an issue for this ball club. They have not dominated the boards in any way, shape, or form at this juncture. And you've got Ware, who's a 7-foot guy who's very capable, and he's long, and he gets a share of rebounds, but he's got to understand how physical this league is, and that's part of the reason that he struggled last year, I think, at Oregon. Because of the physicality of guys playing against him. And he's a skilled guy. He is one of those guys that can shoot the basketball from out. He's got great skills from a shooting perspective. He knows how to play the game. He's just got to become more of a physical presence out there for Indiana if they're going to be as successful as they hope to be.
Don, are you guys back at the Chop Shop tonight?
We are not. We are traveling with the basketball team to
That's right. So one more week, right?
Yep. Next week we won't be back. We will actually, next week's show is going to be recorded because it's Martin Luther King holiday, and Mike prefers not to do it on that day. So we're going to record it, and we will have a special guest on that show, I believe, and it's somebody that everybody wants to hear from.
Well, there you go, people. Make sure you're tuning in to all the shows. You should be tuning into all of them with Don anyway, regardless, whether if you can't make it in there. Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. See ya.
Absolutely. Lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joins us next. Back with that and more right after this break.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home
Welcome, Dustin.
Welcome. Thank you, John. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Long time no see, I feel like.
Indeed. It's been a while. My apologies on the Christmas week.
Oh, no, you're good. We ended up taking a couple days off, so we were good.
Good deal. Cool. How goes everything? It's been a while. Like, I feel like, everything good with you guys?
Yeah, everything's good. Just feel like most things are pretty much the same, that I can think of.
I get to ask if he got all of his Tonka toys for Christmas.
How you doing, Jim?
I'm good, sir. How about yourself?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right.
It's winter. I saw it snowing yesterday. Spitting.
We had some on the ground a couple days ago, and it's mostly disappeared since then. But
we have yet to receive any in my neck of the woods down in the Louisville, Kentucky area, but there's a chance we'll get a little bit, I think, this week, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'm not upset about the lack thereof so far. It's not bothering me. Not upset about that.
Oh, where are we? Oh, shit. That's here. I should see you on the 10th. I should be up there. Oh, I got to remember to bring. I still got that stinking box of wine. I just saw that the other day. Where is today? Or where is yesterday? 150 points. 100. Holy God. 1, 2, 3, 4. In 3 out of their last 5 games, they've scored over 140 points.
We're talking about the Pacers?
Yeah.
Yep. They've been good. I mean, Saturday night they weren't great, but they were down a couple people against Boston, and you don't want to be down a couple people against Boston. The Celtics are really good.
Oh, then the Celtics return their favor tonight.
They do. Yeah, no, these 2 and 3 series are fun.
Yeah, I see. That's how it should always be. I think it's stupid to travel one game.
All right, here we go. Here we go, guys.
Honda Ridge Line. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty. Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, January 8th. Thanks a lot for being with us. We appreciate you as always. Great start to the show already, and it continues. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. Dustin, lots going on in the the state of Indiana. Again, a big-time sports weekend this past weekend. You had Indiana with a game at home. You had the Pacers with a home game. The Colts had a home game all at the same time. Purdue played the night before that. I mean, it's just been a wild couple of weeks in the state of Indiana for big-time sporting events.
Yeah, and it was a sad one. Saturday night in Indy was supposed to be a deal, and it was a deal. But obviously things did not go according to plan. The Pacers had the Celtics at home, and, they were playing without a couple guys that you really need if you're going to beat the Celtics. Bruce Brown and Andrew Nembhard were both out. That's 2 of the best perimeter defenders, and you need all of your best perimeter defenders on hand if you're going to deal with the Celtics, because you got Holiday and White and Brown and Tatum, and Brown and Tatum really caused them huge problems. I think they combined for 69 points in that game. Tatum went off, and Brown just did a really good job of hunting Tyrese Halliburton, basically just finding ways of getting him in mismatches and kind of putting him in a blender. And Halliburton's obviously an incredible offensive player. He does a lot of good things on the defensive end, but he doesn't really guard well. That's a weird thing to say. He might be the best defensive player who doesn't guard particularly well. He's really good at reading passing lanes and defensive rebounding and using his length to kind of get his hands on the ball. But if you're just going to go at him, you can get him that way. And they did a lot. And so, so Celtics won a game that they had to be expected to win. Obviously, the Pacers won 6 straight. And, Boston came in and just caught the Pacers on a rough night when they weren't all the way healthy. And then just obviously across the way down South Street, right as I was finishing up writing, the Colts had just totally gut-wrenching way of losing a football game, obviously, with the Tyler Goodson drop. I mean, that's just brutal. But, obviously there's just, recriminations as to the play design, or why do you have him on the field as opposed to Jonathan Taylor in that circumstance? The pass was a little bit behind him, all those kinds of things. On 4th and 1, it wasn't exactly what you want when you got your season on the line, but yeah, just rough way of losing a football game. So it was a rough night in Indy, but obviously IU made things a little bit better. With winning that game against Ohio State. Obviously, that was a pretty important statement victory, I thought. So yeah, a lot of interesting things going on that night. Obviously, Purdue, like you mentioned, winning on Friday night, which a big one. Obviously, I think Illinois certainly is weaker now that they certainly built a really good resume with Terrence Shannon, and they're probably going to be without him for a while, if he's even going to play again this season. So that's still a really helpful win for Purdue. They look, really good shape. But yeah, no, was a lot going on in Indy this weekend. But obviously the crown jewel, the most important game, the Colts lose. And so that's a rough one. And Colts fans still struggling with that one, I'm sure, on Monday morning.
Well, not just losing on basically the last play of the game. It wasn't necessarily, but for the Colts, it certainly was.
Right. Yeah. You have a
down
chance.
to 4th and 1. It's like, gee whiz, your entire freaking season comes down to one play, 1 yard to go, and everything is riding on that. And I don't care what the play call is. If it doesn't work, that play is going to be questioned. Oh, that was a stupid call in the world. Why would you run that play? And then sometimes you agree, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because there have been too many times where, like, let's say someone runs up the middle and you're like, why the hell would they do that? Then there's other times where it's 3rd and 17 and they run the damn ball up the middle and they get 19 yards. It's just crazy. And there's a reason and a rhyme and a reason, but man, it didn't work out. And the expectations at the start of the season were not here, but they certainly got here. And to get that close, it was so tantalizing. And I don't know, was it better for the Colts to lose this game from a future draft pick status?
Not good enough. Not good enough. I mean, I think you don't, when you have a chance to win the division, you don't want to, give that away. And when you've already got 9 wins, like you're not going to be high up there as far as the pick is concerned. You don't want to throw that away when you have the opportunity, especially with, when you manage to get this far with your backup quarterback. Those are the type of things that you don't want to just walk away from. I mean, I think Houston's dangerous, getting in the playoffs, and I think you'd want to keep them out, frankly. That's another thing. I mean, like you kind of give life to a division rival, that picked ahead of you, and I think CJ Stroud getting in the playoffs, man, I don't know if you want to, if you're the Colts, and you have the opportunity to keep him out his first year, I think you want to do it, because, when Stroud gets some experience, he gets rolling, like Houston could be a problem for years going forward. And so, like, if you have the opportunity to deny him some success, like, that's important. Getting into the playoffs is important. Obviously there's, you would rather do it with your rookie quarterback and him get that experience. Certainly Richardson's out. He's been out, that there was no way of doing that. But if you can still get in with your backup quarterback, like that gets a lot of guys some experience, a lot of guys the feel of believing, you can do this even with your backup, like you're further along than you might think you are. So I think, yeah, none of that's good. I mean, obviously it's just a tough deal when you design a play that gets an open look. It's sort of like it's similar thing in basketball. Basically, like if you design a play that gets you an open look from three, it's like you feel like, okay, that's a good play design. Regardless of who's shooting the ball, but obviously who shoots it matters. And I think it matters less so, it matters more who shoots it than who catches the pass, because you would think a lot of guys can catch as opposed to not everybody can hit a three. But still, that's one. I mean, it's kind of more like getting you a layup. I mean, it wasn't that easy. I could see how it required a little bit of a twist on Goodson's part. And the pass wasn't exactly there. And I think they'd only thrown Goodson like 7 passes all year, something along those lines. But all the same, man, that's a tough deal when you design a play that creates a wide open pass, because there was nobody near the guy. I mean, he easily gets 6-7 yards if he catches that ball. That's rough. I mean, certainly, again, I understand the idea of, players have to matter as much as plays do. And you want to get the ball in the hand of a sure-handed guy in that case. But man, I mean, he was all alone, that's a rough deal, and that's not a far pass, and Minshew should have made a better one, et cetera too, but still just rough way to lose for your season to end right there.
Well, while the Colts could not manage to get it done, I keep forgetting, because I'm always, Mike DeCourcy is such a Steelers fan. I kind of forget that you're also a Yenza.
Yes, indeed. We grew up. Me and Mike grew up about 15 minutes away from each other. I mean, he was much older than me, and I think he was at the Pittsburgh Press when I was in grade school. But all the same, he went to Elizabeth Forward. I went to Norwin. So like his Elizabeth, he probably got his tux from my dad. Probably. So
your dad. Whoa! You just buried the lead. Did your dad run a tux store?
Did. Yeah. No, my grandfather and my uncle and my great uncle opened it in 1955, called Highway Tux, and
holy shit,
it stayed open until the year 2000. So that was my freshman year in college, was when Dad had to close up. But yeah, so Elizabeth Forward was on our list of schools that kids that we usually took care of. That was kind of in our coverage area. Is kind of a weird thing, but like we had about maybe 10, 15 schools that usually came to us for tuxes, and Elizabeth Forward was high on the list.
So the Steelers basically are gifted their way in. They kind of backed into the playoffs with the Ravens sitting everybody, while the Colts were trying to fight their way in against a team that also had to win or go home. The Steelers, after a season that most people thought was
a mess,
over and out, done and gone, and now they end up in the playoffs.
Yeah. Mason Rudolph, man, everything was going really south, and Kenny Pickett got hurt, and so that's their first round draft pick from a couple years back, or not from a couple years back, from last year. And Mason Rudolph, who was a guy that had been buried, was third on the depth chart behind Pickett and Trubisky, and so Mason Rudolph wins the job and runs the table. Wins a couple really big important games. Obviously, as you mentioned, they get a Baltimore team that certainly had already wrapped up the first seed, so they didn't need to play anybody, and it was a miserable looking game. And I was watching obviously from press row, or from the press room. At the Pacers game on Saturday night, and so they just somehow managed to pull it off. Got some luck on Saturday with Tennessee deciding to put it to Jacksonville. Obviously, Tennessee didn't need to really do much in that game because they were out. They were well out, but they let Derrick Henry have his swan song game, presuming that's going to be the end of his Tennessee career. And he was phenomenal. He was really vintage Derrick Henry for $153 and a touchdown. Was bruising guys like Derrick Henry does in his glory. And so they very much came through. Just obviously a big piece of it proves that obviously that there are the bottom half of the playoffs was pretty shaky for the AFC. And so, Steelers luck out, obviously, to get to 7 seed. To get 10 wins with this team was really surprising because, there was a period where they looked like a wreck. But, they had some really good defensive talent. Certainly, TJ Watt made a Defensive Player of the Year case. But that offense was a wreck, and somehow Mason Rudolph managed to weave it all together to make it at least functional for the last couple of weeks and, put them in the position to get to be a playoff team. And so, yeah, that's pretty wild to me, honestly. I did not expect this team to be a playoff team. Thought for a while there that the Mike Tomlin, no losing season streak was very much on the line. Thought Mike Tomlin's job was very much on the line for a little while. And I think there are still, I would say the fan base and what I would call the opinionated media in Pittsburgh. Obviously, there are people whose job is to have a take, whether it's columnists or sports radio people or people that aren't necessarily beat writers, have been getting there with Mike Tomlin as far as calling for his job, and that's been a long time coming. Sounds weird, but certainly he's been around for a long time. I think it's probably the second longest tenured coach to Belichick. And I think a significant amount of that kind of media was over it, based on what I've seen on Twitter, and he really did a heck of a job of really kind of resurrecting himself is a little bit strong, but getting himself back right and getting the franchise back right over the last couple of weeks. It's been a pretty dramatic turn back in the homeland.
And great to see. So Trace Jackson Davis, somebody just mentioned. Let's see, I lost that. Fred, with the start again for the Golden State Warriors, another double for him. But of course, Draymond Green returns this week from exile, and Loading says he wondered how that messes with TJ's minutes. Well, they ain't gonna mess with him. It's gonna make a dramatically stomp all over him.
Yeah, no, certainly Draymond will get right back in there. But obviously, the big piece is that he's proven a lot in this, and
that they can count on him, and that is gigantic. That they can count on him.
It is. Even if his minutes run away and hide for a while, they know he's proven himself. And the Warriors have had a tough stretch, and that's not Trace isn't the fault of that. Obviously, there's a lot else that's not going particularly well for them. But no, he's proven that really he is what we thought he could be. And obviously we spent a lot of time talking about what he wasn't going in the draft. But the Golden State Warriors saw him for what he was, and that's all he needs to be for them. I think that's the big issue is that you really, the NBA is such an opportunity league. They're certainly the superstars of the superstars, and they can do everything. And to get in that upper echelon, like you can't have a lot of weaknesses. You can have one or two, but you got to do a lot of good things to be a great player. But to get in, you just have to be able to do a couple things on a really high level. You need to be able to do more than one. You can't just play defense and get in the league, and you can't just shoot and get in the league. But if you can do a couple things pretty well, you can find a role. And in Trace's case, he can run the floor, rebound, finish lobs, be a high energy guy, get open and finish on a pick and roll. When usually certainly you're going to want to blitz Steph Curry, and you're going to want to try to get him early on there and be able to play make off a pick and roll. That's a big thing, is that, what made Green really good and made that offense what it was, when they were winning championship after championship, is Draymond Green could play make as a roll man, find Clay in the corner off of a pick and roll with Steph and be a really good passer. Trace can do that kind of thing. And, you know, again, also rebound, also block shots, you know, also finish stuff at the rim. And so he's proven he can do that. And so he can slide right in there. You know, there's going to be a time when they have to move on from Draymond. And they're going to be able to trust Trace Jackson Davis when they do. And, you know, they're going to be able to trust him to play minutes when either he or either Green or Looney are out, or they want to get to somebody else minutes. There's opportunity there. I mean, obviously he's going to have a hard time getting back on the floor now if they have Green and Looney. But still, he's going to have opportunity. He's found himself a good role at that franchise. That doesn't mean he's not going to spend some time in Santa Cruz the rest of the year. He probably will. But he's proven that he belongs on that roster and that there's a place for him going forward.
Absolutely. And we've got lots more to coming up here on the Indiana Sports Beat program. And as Jared said, he's ready to collect his winning package from the bowl picks. Oh, so he won the bowl. So you won the bowl as well.
Won the bowl picks, so hook him up.
So congratulations. I'm at to pull that up, but
good for you, Jared. Well done, sir.
Yes, congratulations. We also have to get out, and I was looking for my notepad to write on. Here it is. To write a note to self today to get all that stuff out. We've still got to get it out for the football season in general, but I'm gonna work on getting that out today. We got lots more coming up. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Stars with us tonight. The national championship, baby. Washington and those hated Michigan Wolverines, the villain. It has to be an 80.
Go to break.
90% people cheering for Washington tonight. We'll talk about that and much more when we come back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
I was just another question. I was like, what's he doing?
I was just setting it up, baby.
Okay.
I was like, no.
Like, this will be another 4 minutes and we'll be way behind.
Out to people. Man, I got it. I hate mailing stuff. Well, it's just you got to go to the post office. You got to get
postage. Yeah, it's not fun. The going to the post office is the least problematic part. It's getting everything else. It's the boxes. I gotta mail stuff out now that you mentioned
stupid bags.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then you stand in line. Then you got to stand in line.
Yeah.
Imagine if every household just had a tiny little box that you could just hit a button and it would take it to the house that you needed it to go to in less than a couple of seconds.
Or you could just do like was it Amazon? It was going to start using the drone deliveries. You didn't see that?
Maybe. No, I haven't seen them.
We used to be able to put I don't know. My house would just put the flag up in the old days. Like, I don't know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. For an envelope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm talking about, I got
a case,
shirts and stuff like that. I got to get sent out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, baby. Just flip the flag up.
Right.
Knock it back down.
Yeah. I don't have one anymore, but when we were,
hey, I had an address that was a route, rural route.
Oh man.
Rural route 2 box 4 something.
Yep.
And that was a regular house when I was a kid growing up.
Yep.
Man. But what the hell? That address has just slipped my mind. It's like I can remember phone numbers from back when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
Because back then you had to dial each and every one of those phone numbers. I remember my grandmother's phone number, who has long since passed away. I remember our first phone number as a kid.
Yep.
I remember my high school's phone number. It's crazy. Just so many phone numbers are in my head that are no longer in existence, unfortunately. Yep. But cell phone numbers, forget that. I can't remember.
I just entered them.
Like,
yeah,
if I gotta remember somebody's number, it's over. I'm like, oh,
no,
you crazy?
No, I've had to look up my wife's number to make sure we there's when we go buy stuff at PetSmart for the dog and the cat, like there's like a point rewards program or whatever, and so like
10 seconds, guys.
Yeah, finally got to the point that I remember my wife's number, and that's after giving it to them like 20 times.
StonecrestLiving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
It's a dream come true, to be honest. You know, I'm still wrapping my head around it. You know, just super blessed to be in this position. You know, this is something that you dream of as kids. You know, coming to play for the national championship. You know, for us to be here right now. You know, all the hard work and dedication that it took to get here. You know, it definitely showing that it's paid off. You know, but obviously we got to make it happen.
That was Michael Penix, former Indiana quarterback. And, of course, the Heisman Trophy finalist at Washington as they get set to take on the Michigan Wolverines tonight in the national championship game for the college football national title. Kalen DeBoer, of course, also along there for the ride as the head coach, former offensive coordinator at Indiana. And it's tough because I've always been I'd rather see the Big Ten do well than not do well.
Mm-hmm.
And in this game, I am including Washington as a Big Ten member because
they're going to be. And I do not want, I'll just tell you straight up, I don't want to see Jim Harbaugh win the national championship. I just think it would be rewarding the crap that he has done. And I'm not involved in the investigation, but I'm sorry. There's just, when you have investigation after investigation after investigation, I mean, this goes way back to when he was taking his team on trips to do stuff. They just got, on one hand, you have to look at it as, hey, he's willing to push the envelope and to do what it takes to win. That part I've got no problem with. But when you knowingly step over some lines, and I think that there was, my opinion is that was done. Of course, that's my opinion. But and why the hell would I not want to see Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix win? Just because they're great guys. Kalen has been awesome, and you talk about a great story. What a great story it is. The dude is like 110-4 or 14 or whatever he is as a head coach. It's crazy for a guy who came from freaking nowhere, South Dakota. Coached at the NAIA level or whatever level that was for that long. And it just shows winning is winning. And that gives, first of all, that gives hope to Indiana fans in regards to Curt Cignetti and his making his adjustment. But it's just, this is a game I'm really looking forward to, on top of the fact I think it's going to be a hell of a game, Dustin. Sure. No, absolutely. I mean, a couple different points to highlight there. I mean, obviously it's just, it is cool when you're just thinking of, seeing good people that you cover in this business, get someplace. And it's, obviously rooting for them feels odd because, on a professional level when you cover them. But, like seeing Michael Penix on TV, just, I mean, obviously he's a really good dude. Still, like, I mean, the guy's answers are so nice and so well put together and tell you nothing almost ever. Michael does a great job of keeping you from, of just like giving you a really wide-eyed, like very polite answer without like letting you inside of absolutely anything whatsoever. He does a really good job of like keeping you kind of walled off from like something deeper and detailed, but obviously just was a super kid to cover, and so it's cool to see a guy like that have success. I mean, I wasn't around for the DeBoer era. I mean, I think I talked to him on the phone once because I did like a parachute story when I was at the Athletic and I was only covering basketball, and they got to the bowl game in 2019. So they when they had gotten rolling, when they got bowl eligible, I did a piece, and I think I talked to Kalen on the phone. But just struck me as a good dude, obviously, and I think I mean Nick Sheridan's still there, right? Like he's still on that staff, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah. And William Inge, I believe.
Yeah, so bunch of William Inch is a good dude. So a lot of good dudes, that we got to cover at Indiana on that staff, and certainly when you saw what all Penix just went through, certainly just caught every bad break in the book from an injury standpoint, and to see him kind of rise up, get past that, and have this kind of season where he takes his team to the national championship game. You're second on the Heisman voting. I don't know how highly he's going to get picked, but he's going to be an NFL quarterback. All of that's just good things for good people. On the Michigan side of it, I think what I look at it very strangely because I just don't like. Part of me is like, okay, like he deserves to be punished on some level, if everything's true. But I think the other piece of it is I just really feel like everything that he's done that was that was on the other side of the line was unnecessary. I think that's kind of the biggest thing is like there are certain, we certainly have, I think, a catalog of cheating scandals, at this point in terms of what we've seen in our careers in the business, in our just lives as sports fans and just, observing, on the list of what most materially altered the, outcomes of games. This is probably pretty low. Like they probably didn't need any of it. Like they probably didn't need Connor Stallions at all. The only
place I would have said maybe is versus Ohio State prior to this season,
maybe
because he had been 0-7 against Ohio State, I believe was right 0-7 before he got that first win 2 years ago. So and it was like I can't. He knew because that's when the contract renegotiation came up. He was on the hot seat. So all of this comes about immediately after that.
Yeah, I get it. But they were also 11-0. That was a good team, last year. That was a really good football team. And so like, I don't know. They were just dramatic. The thing was like, you mentioned the contract extension. They were in bad shape the year before. I remember you and I talked going into the 2021 season thinking Indiana was like, I think they beat Michigan. And they ended up really not beating Michigan. And we were wrong about that. But you don't get that much better on stealing signs. They got better. They ran the football better. They were physically dominant. Really Corum emerges as a big time back, at that point. And so you're like, wow, okay, this is a really good team. And who else? I can't remember who the other back was at the time, but they got a lot better, 21, and they've been better since then. And so I think, I'm sure I don't want to say that it was nothing, but I think just what strikes you about it, and what I mean to say is he gets himself in unnecessary trouble. I think that's really the thing. It's just like, it's not like, I don't mean that to downplay it. It's just more like stupid, from, again, like, obviously I haven't done any investigation myself either. This is not my beat. This is, I'm not even covering college football anymore, but just from an outside look at it, you're just like, really? Like you got in trouble for that, and also you didn't really do a good job at all of hiding your tracks. In fact, you did an embarrassing job of not hiding your tracks. It's just, and I don't know what all he had to do with, and whether he just kind of gave some leeway to a rogue staffer and Stallions or what. But you're just like,
I'm most impressed by the fact that he is able to just constantly brush it off as if it is nothing. Like it was a simple turnover in a game. Oh, it's no big deal. There's what's his phrase that he's using now? Daggone it. One track mind.
Right.
One track. Well, every time somebody asks any question regarding anything, not about this game, oh, we're just on a one track mind, and he smiles and laughs. Yeah. One track mind. Is that because no matter what happens, do you think that he is still in college coaching next year or at Michigan for that matter?
I mean, probably not. I mean, if I was him, I'd get out. If you see the if they're coming after you, you know, I would say, you know, you probably go. But like the thing about Jim, though it's like if you've ever had a conversation, if you've ever been around the Jim Harbaugh press conference, it's just like there's some crazy like a fox to it, I guess. But like that, you know, like his ability, it's not an ability. I don't know, like. It just really struck me, obviously, during the Crean era, because we would, you know, the Harbaughs would be around, you know, from time to time. Like you'd get, you know, they would come down from the combine and stuff like that, because this was what Jim was with the 49ers and stuff. And I remember like having a conversation with John, like you're on an equal level. You're talking to a normal, straight up, you know, just person who just understands what you said and answers your question, you know, and you're like, oh, this is a regular, normal conversation. And you talk to Jim and you're like, where am I? like I'm in the Twilight
Planet
Zone.
Zion, baby. Like, he goes to Planet Zion.
Yeah, you're like, huh? What are we talking about? I mean, I just remember a conversation. Like he came down for the combine, and he was on the sideline with Tom, and he rearranged the chairs during timeouts, and we're like, what are you doing? Like you're an NFL coach. Why did you employ yourself to like be the guy who, you know, puts the chairs together on timeouts? And we had a brief conversation with him, and I don't even remember if we asked a question. He just babbled something and then left, and we were like, what was that? And so a lot of those are like that. I mean, I imagine some of that is he's made a career out of doing that. It's just not you can't hold him down because it's like trying to, you know, grab air with chopsticks. It's just like what, you know, like he is a gas that is that is uncatchable, or a liquid that you cannot hold in your fingers. It's just, you know, trying to have a conversation with him is like that, you know, like it's just bizarre. And so that allows him to escape any question that you want, because you're just like, I don't know how do I grab this thing? You know, it's like trying to hold smoke, you know. That's what it's like to have a conversation with Harbaugh. It's that bizarre.
What do you expect tonight?
I expect to miss the game because the Pacers will be playing the Celtics. But I think I'm going to say Michigan wins just because of their ability. I think they'll be able to overpower. You know, that's the
line.
Yeah. That's
the key guess. Has been the key for Washington is not getting Michael Penix sacked. He doesn't really get sacked. Mm-hmm. And so that's if they get to Michael Penix, that's going to be a problem for Washington. If they can't get to Michael Penix, that is going to be a problem for
100%. And you know, like they really got after Milroe in the Rose Bowl, and Milroe's a different guy. I have said it throughout the year. Jalen Milroe is the chaos agent of college football 2023. You know, obviously he is pretty much singularly responsible for the playoff controversy. You know, like if Jalen Milroe doesn't throw that pass against Auburn, and if he doesn't beat Georgia, you know, then everything is normal. Florida State gets in, you know, that you just throw 4 undefeated teams in there. Georgia's in there, and Georgia is probably playing Michigan in the title game right now. Or whoever. Michigan, Washington would have already happened last week, probably. Georgia would have beat Florida State by 63 in the Rose Bowl, or in the Sugar Bowl, rather than in the Orange. And you know, but one way or another, Michigan was able to get to Milroe, and it's easier to do that, I think, than it is to Penix, because I think that offensive line's really good. Certainly, we've talked about how good the receivers are and their ability to get open. You know, like I just love Romeo Odunze, and I'm looking forward to him as an NFL receiver. He's going to be terrific.
Absolutely.
So, you know, but tonight's going to be fun. Tonight's going to be fun for sure. I'll probably catch, I don't know, the last, you know, hour of it after Celtics Pacers. But it's going to be a good game.
Well, you know, Michael Penix can become the first quarterback to defeat Jim Harbaugh and Michigan at 2 different schools.
That's pretty wild.
Last time when he was in Indiana,
he will not be the first. He will not be the last.
And to have done it at Indiana once, that's impressive in and of itself. But
that is a deal.
And So I believe Kalen DeBoer was also his
was.
offense.
No. That was 20. That was 20. Remember?
Oh, it was 20. That's right. It was 20, not 19. Damn it.
Oh,
all right. What's up next for you? I guess the game tonight.
Yeah, Pacers Celtics tonight. Pacers Wizards Wednesday. They hit the road on Friday for a pretty long trip. They've got they go to Atlanta and then they go out west. It's not necessarily a West Coast trip. It kind of is. They've got, I think it's Nuggets, Jazz, Kings, Blazers, Suns after that. So it's going to be a trip. But yeah, so a couple more home games this week. Could be a fun one in at Gamebridge tonight if the Pacers get Brown and Nembhard back. They get a chance of getting some revenge against the Celtics and Boston's best team in the league. So that should be a fun one.
Sounds good. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. Make sure you're giving him a follow, keeping up on all things Pacers and much more. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Dustin Dopirak. Make sure you're giving him a follow. Up next, Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. We're going to talk some Big Ten basketball and see where things are at the top, in the middle, and all that goes into it. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly.
Morning, gentlemen.
Travis, welcome.
It's been a week. we took in a new cat that it was a little 4-pound kitten that showed up on our porch that we had to bring in on New Year's Eve, and then 6 days later we found out that our entire HVAC system needed to be replaced because, quote, you're lucky it didn't burn your house down.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
it's terrifying.
Yeah, we found that out Friday morning and did not have heat again until Saturday about 9 p.m.
That sounds fun, especially up there.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you that a complete install of an HVAC system with 2 technicians working for 10 hours on a Saturday is not cheap.
Oh, I bet.
What day was that? Oh, that was yesterday. What happened Saturday? Were there any games Friday? Oh, yeah. Damn, that was closer than I thought it would be.
Oh, man.
Man, Trey Kaufman-Wren, how long has it been since Mount Edie was not the leading scorer?
Well, they've had it a couple of times, and Lawyer's done it a couple of times, and Smith's done it a couple of times. So they've had pretty decent balance all season, but at a lot of the big games, it's been Edie that's been the one feasting the most. So pretty sure against Arizona, Smith had like 20, 25 or something like that. And I know Lawyer had a really good game that game too.
How much time, Johnny boy?
You got about 50 seconds.
Nice.
I think Casey is going to tap out of driving to Nebraska tomorrow through a blizzard.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me.
He hopped on our group chat today. It was like, man, there's a blizzard. I may not be going to Nebraska. I'm like, dude, just contact the Nebraska Rivals guy.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Yeah, if there's somebody local, just do that. Don't drive into a snowstorm.
All right, here we go.
For 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, January 8th, and coming off of a big weekend and heading back into another big week. Welcome, Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Lots happening over the weekend, Travis, starting Friday night. Purdue with a game against Illinois, a game that we had much anticipated. Of course, a little bit was taken off of that with the situation with Illinois, but this turned out to be a game that was still close as Illinois has been playing well. The Boilers get a 5-point win, 83-78. Trey Kaufman ran the leading scorer for the Boilers, which has to be a positive sign for Matt Painter and the Boilers for it not to be Mount Edie.
Yeah, I think this was a really important game for Purdue because Edie picked up his second foul and he sat the last 8 or 9 minutes of the first half. And the lead was down to about 6 at that point. But Kaufman-Renn had best game of his career to this point. And I think that shows just how much of a team Purdue is, and that if Edie has to sit, they're still pretty good. I mean, you have Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer are doing their things. Lawyer had the off game on Friday night, but you still got 17 points from Lance Jones, who, as a transfer into the program, I don't think his importance can be overstated, really. He has done so much since he arrived. He steps immediately into a starting role, and through 14, 15 games, he looks like he's been playing with these guys for 4 years. And that was what was critical. Purdue showed that it is still a really good team with Edie in foul trouble. He finished the game with 4 fouls, only 10 points, but he had 15 rebounds, and it was Smith, it was Jones, and it was Kaufman-Renn that really drove things against a really good top 10 Illinois team. Even without Terrence Shannon, they're still incredibly good. And Purdue was in control for most of the night. It got a little close late. There was a very questionable flagrant foul on Lance Jones that greatly benefited Illinois to get it close. But in the end, Purdue was able to hang on and got yet another top 10 win.
Yeah, and then over the weekend, of course, besides that, Iowa beats Rutgers 86-77 at home. Wisconsin remains undefeated in conference play with an 88-72 win for the Badgers. But Indiana, let's see, Northwestern with another big win for them. They knock off Michigan State. Of course, that's at home, 88-74. But boy, Michigan State is still riding that roller coaster. Northwestern looking good. And then today, there are no games scheduled today. But right now, the standings find Wisconsin sitting alone at the top at 3-0, which not shocking. We knew they were going to be decent, and it's still early in the season. And then there's a 3-way tie between Purdue, Minnesota, and Indiana of all. But I don't know what's more surprising, Indiana or Minnesota in that group right there right now at this particular time after what we had seen. But Minnesota, I'm going to go with Minnesota being the shocker, because not only is Minnesota in the top at the top of the Big Ten, New Mexico and Richard Pitino are also killing it right now. So it's just kind of weird how things work out for teams.
Yeah, and Minnesota's taking advantage. They had a pretty weak non-conference. I know they're going to probably have to win 12, 13 games to make the NCAA tournament within the Big Ten. But, they're off to a great start. You got to give them credit for what they're doing. They do not have Purdue at home this year. They only have one game against Purdue, which is going to be critical to, just rack up wins. And that is, unfortunately, the downside of Big Ten scheduling is you can rack up a lot of wins, but if you don't play some of the top teams, it kind of skews your record. It skews your computer numbers and everything. Whereas other ways, you could have a really difficult schedule and be a really good team, but you end up losing, 6, 7, 8 games because simply you're playing the top 4 teams twice. So it'll be interesting to see how things work out for Minnesota. I'm not sure who they have the rest of the way, who they play twice, who they play once. I do know they only get Purdue once on the road, so that's a likely loss, but you eliminate a second possible loss at home against a really good team.
Absolutely. And of course, coming up tomorrow night, Indiana travels to Piscataway to take on Rutgers, a place where they've had some problems playing, but this is not the Rutgers teams of the last few years. They're not quite as good. They're not quite as tough, although it's still a tough place to play. And this is a game that I think Indiana can certainly win and really need to win, because there are few games on the road in the Big Ten where you can sneak in and get one out. This, I think, is the time and place where you can make that happen because of the situation. But this is it's an important game for Indiana to keep winning games that you can, and I guess I hate to use the word should win. They're not going to be a favorite, but they weren't a favorite against Ohio State the other day either. Ken Palm has picked them to go 1-7 in the month of January, which is a very, very poor outlook for not only for the Hoosiers month, but for their entire season. So this game against Ohio State was huge, but so is this game at Rutgers. It's really, really big for Indiana.
Yeah, you said it. It's so difficult to pull off wins in Big Ten play away from home. You can't take any of them for granted. Mostly because Indiana is just so good at home. I got to give them credit. They're going to be in every game at home, so they got to grab those wins on the road. They already got one at Michigan, and this certainly looks like it's a pretty winnable game on the road, just because I think you're starting to see the conference stratify itself a little bit. But even at the bottom, teams are going to be tough to play away from on the road. That's just the nature of the conference right now. I certainly didn't expect Purdue to lose at Northwestern, and look what happened. It happens all the time. I mean, one of my favorite things to say is Penn State has the worst but best home court advantage in the conference, because nobody is ever there. But it seems like at least once a year, a ranked Big Ten team walks in there and just completely falls asleep in the Bryce Jordan mausoleum, as I call it, and they end up losing because it's just like playing in an empty hangar and they just fall asleep.
Well, I know that where were you talking about, at Northwestern?
No, Penn State, the Bryce Jordan mausoleum.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's boy. It's
they
like
always
everybody's
get somebody.
It was, yeah. Indiana had some tough games there, but we will certainly find out. Purdue also with a game that they are favored in, I'm sure, at Nebraska, but Nebraska playing better. Nebraska has given Purdue problems on the road or at home before, and last year Purdue barely escaped out of there with a win.
Yeah, took him to overtime last year. Fletcher Lawyer kind of had the first huge game of his career. I think he had like 27 points. And it was a game where, to be quite honest, Purdue got a couple fortuitous foul calls on Nebraska and was able to stay in it and pulled it out in overtime. But that's a place that they sell out. They love the Cornhuskers. They've got really great support for every home game, regardless of how good they are. And
There's
Nebraska, like you said, is playing really
Nebraska.
Well. Yeah. But yeah, like you said, they're playing really well right now. I think that they're a tournament team out of the Big Ten. If as the way things are looking right now, we'll see how well things go through and the season plays out. But don't be surprised if they finish in the top half of the Big Ten and end up going to the tournament.
Well, like right now, you look at teams like Iowa, who I think is a decent team, but they're 12th in the Big Ten right now with a 1-3 record. Michigan State, who was thought to be probably the team to give Purdue the biggest run besides Illinois, they're 1-3. They're 11th in league play right now, and they're really struggling. Maryland, they're not as good as they were last year. I don't think that they're going to be as good as at home this year as they were last year. Penn State is in 9th. Then you keep moving up. There's Nebraska giving themselves hope with a 2-2 mark in the conference, 12-3 overall. Ohio State, Northwestern, as you move up, Illinois, and then Indiana 4th, Minnesota, Purdue, and then Wisconsin at the top. And just each and every one of these games are going to become so important because there has, I don't want to call it parity, but for lack of a better word, the Big Ten this year may have the biggest stretch of parity from, once you get past Purdue, Purdue's a dominant team, but Wisconsin is a team, they're not necessarily dominant, but they can beat you or pretty much anybody on a given night. After that, I don't know where it really goes, but the Nebraska, Ohio State, Northwestern, Illinois, Indiana, all those teams in the middle, man, that's going to be a churn. And that didn't include teams. If you have to go to Michigan State to play, I know that they're struggling right now, but going to play at the Breslin Center is always going to be tough. Going to play in Iowa City is going to be tough. So we'll certainly see. But Rutgers right now in last place at 0-3 of the Big Ten. Indiana almost has to win this game. You don't want to be the team that loses to the last place team in the conference.
Right. And, you were talking about the schedule there of who you've got to play on the road. That's where Purdue is right now. They still have to go to Illinois. They still have to go to Wisconsin. They've got to go to Indiana. They have to go to Rutgers, which has been kind of a nightmare place for them to play. I believe they've lost 3 in a row there. Zach Edey's never won a game at Rutgers. That is the last Big Ten arena he has not won a game in. So that's coming at the end of the month. Purdue does not have to go to Michigan State. That's like the one break that they have on the scheduling, but they got to go to Nebraska. They got to go to Iowa. So these road games, man, Purdue is not getting any favors, at least. And if they come out of that and they win the Big Ten at something like 16-4, 17-3, they will have earned it, honestly.
Let's see. We've got to take a quick break. If you've got a few more minutes to stick around, I'd like to talk to you about tonight's national championship game.
Sure.
But if not, I understand you got to go. But we'll take a quick break. Travis Miller with Boiler Uploads with us. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about tonight's national title game, baby. I'm looking forward to this. This has been this is the most anticipated national championship game for me in a while. But we'll get to that and much more with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Reynolds Family Dentistry down in Sellersburg. For those of you in Southern Indiana, go see Dr. J for that championship-winning smile. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Boy, Reynolds needs to give Trakoff and Wren some NIL money since they're Sellersburg.
Oh yeah, that
Well, he plays for the wrong team.
I was honestly shocked we got him out of Southern Indiana.
Well, the only reason it's just Archie Miller, man. That's it. This is the exact same thing as when Eric Gordon was committed to Illinois. And then when Indiana went through the coaching change, Eric Gordon changed his commitment. And boy, Illinois fans just hated him.
Oh, they lost their mind.
And I'm like going, what the hell did you all stupid people expect? I mean, the kid's from Indiana. He is an Indiana kid. My God. The only reason he wasn't going to Illinois because it's Indiana. He was going to Illinois because Indiana wasn't Indiana at the time, and he didn't like what was going on there. But when that change was made, it's just like that cracks me up. But that's typical Illinois, and that was bred into them by Bruce Weber, who is just one of the biggest crybabies in the history of coaching. He was.
And now he's on Big Ten Network. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh, yo, trust me, it's not. I mean, I hate to say that about him because he might be on the show at some point, but back then and I won't say that to him, but he was a big ass crybaby.
We heard it all week from Illinois fans. There was one that was like, well, Illinois will win easily if they actually call fouls on Edey. So I saw multiple people in my Twitter feed being like, oh, Edey's on the bench and we're expanding our lead. I thought that wasn't possible. So
yeah, Illinois has got this. They've had some success, but it's like, okay, you all have had like a modicum of success, but they act like they're a blue blood. And it's like, you're not even close to it.
I would argue.
Go ahead.
I would argue Purdue and Illinois are the two best teams in college basketball that have never won a national title.
Huh.
Programs, they're definitely in that category, and there may be a couple of others that might add to it that I can't think of, but I definitely put them in there. You can't,
because they've got all the regular season success. They've been to a couple Final Fours. They've been to the title game, but they've never won it. And I don't count Purdue's 1932 title. I don't. It wasn't
nobody else. Nobody else does either.
10 seconds. Here we go, guys.
It was voted on. The Wild Food Group is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, opening up your week. Hope it was a great weekend for you. And tonight, the national championship game. Before we get to that, Andy says he thinks it's a little early to say Rutgers is a must-win for Indiana. Well, I don't, because they're last in the conference, period. And if you're not going to beat the last place team in the conference, you've got bigger problems ahead, my friends. So you have to get wins where you can get them. That's what makes it a must-win, and not from the standpoint of that if they don't get it, that they don't have the opportunities afterwards, but those opportunities are much more uphill and much more difficult to attain. That's why I call it a must-win. I called the Ohio State game a must-win for that same reason. You got to win at home. You can't do that. So, but that's a whole nother deal. Tonight, Washington and Michigan going at it. Kalen DeBoer, former Indiana offensive coordinator. Michael Penix, Heisman runner-up, former Indiana quarterback. Of course, a lot of people here pulling for Washington for that reason. But, man, I don't know if it would matter who they're playing, Travis. I would Travis Miller was from Boiler Upload, by the way. Michigan could possibly, and I'm a Big Ten guy. I'm usually I'm one of those people that if there's a Big Ten team playing, especially like the SEC, I'm like, okay, I'd like to see the Big Ten win. This is not one of those situations, even though it would be great to get that monkey off the Big Ten's back of not having won a national championship in football for a couple of years. But they're going to be in the Big Ten. They count anyway. And I just don't want to see Jim Harbaugh win after all the things that he's most likely done.
Yeah, it's a weird game. I gotta say that. You got two teams that are going to be in the same conference next season, but they're not right now. I mean, doesn't Indiana host both Washington and Michigan next season? So you know you're getting a game against the defending champs, at least at home.
And the runner-up.
Yeah, the runner-up. I mean, but I'm kind of with you. It's just the Harbaugh thing has been so annoying. It's been so annoying, and I think what makes it so annoying is they didn't need to do it. They had a 2-game season, Penn State and Ohio State. They didn't need to do it against anybody else. Well, 3 games for Alabama, but my goodness, I don't get it. And I think it's going to be an exciting game, and you got the clash of styles and everything. I think I'm kind of pulling for Washington just because I like seeing different teams get in there, and I want to see somebody new. I know Washington's won a national title, but it's been 30 years. Let's see somebody new get in there. And
that was back in the voted days too, Travis. That was back when they voted a national championship. And I remember when the Don James and the Huskies won that. That was like, what, 1990?
Yeah, I think they 90, and I think they split the 91 title with Miami.
I like to see them one on the field for sure. And there's no question, I think, in my mind, you have the two best teams in the national championship game, which is of great importance. I think that I said this a long time ago. As a matter of fact, I've got a tweet from probably 6 weeks ago. I can't wait to go back and pull up that. After I'd sent it, I was a little worried, but I was a little aggravated because Washington was being really disrespected. They've been disrespected all season, and you hear them talk about it. I agree with them. They have been. They have been disrespected along the way. And I put out a tweet that if you're not voting Washington #1 and you're voting Michigan into the top 4, you're an idiot. AP voters. I said, you're an idiot. Because that was due to the cheating thing. I can't abide that. But Washington was just not being given the respect that they were due. Georgia, just because they were Georgia, I'm like, yeah, they're not. I just don't believe it. So anyway, I can't wait to go back and rehash that tweet. I thought it might die a bad death, but luckily it didn't. They managed to keep that alive so I can send that back out. But I think it's going to be, this game is going to be wild. Michigan has not played a team, Travis, like Washington's offense. Nothing even close that I can think of. If Washington can protect Michael Penix, I think it's going to be a long night for Michigan's defense.
Yeah, I tend to agree. The Big Ten, let's just be honest, the Big Ten was terrible this year outside of Michigan and Ohio State. And, give Penn State some credit for beating everybody else as a clear number 3. But, everybody else in the Big Ten was just terrible.
I don't know how good Ohio State really was, to be honest with you. They didn't have a great quarterback. They had an okay quarterback.
Yeah, I got to give them credit for winning at Notre Dame in the non-conference. There was a challenge there. That was a decent win on the road. But yeah, everybody else just kind of, it was a disappointing season for the conference. So you look at what Washington did. To beat Oregon twice, I believe they were the only team that beat Oregon, but they did it twice. And, that was a solid team. You had some other really good programs. Arizona was a solid surprise out of the Pac-12 this year. I'm honestly disappointed that the Pac-12 is not keeping it together because they had some momentum this season. It was a lot of fun to watch some of those games. And
they were the best conference without question in the country this season. And
top to bottom, yeah.
That's hilarious because they haven't even. When's the last time they had Washington was the last team to even get into the college football playoffs for the Pac-12, I believe. But they've had no success nationally since it's gone to this.
Yeah, I think Oregon got to the championship one year, and that's it. But this is a fun conference to watch. I'm an advocate of Pac-12 After Dark. That's a lot of fun to see every year. And I've been on the show with you long enough. You know my position. I think this is ridiculous that we're adding 4 teams to the Big Ten from there. I keep hoping that there's going to be an 11th hour reprieve where they're just like, all right, fine, we're going to.
I got bad news for you, brother. That ain't happening.
I'm hoping. I would love it. I know it's not going to happen, but you never know and everything. So probably the best thing to look forward to the next 2 years out of this is you've got Oregon State and Washington State keep the rights to the Pac-12. And it certainly looks like next year it's going to be a multi-game playoff between the two of them to get an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament, no matter how good either one of them is in basketball.
Now, don't they have to have I don't know how that's going to work out, so we'll have to talk about that another day.
From what I've seen, they hold on to the rights to the automatic bid for 2 years until they can expand the conference or figure something out. So for 2 years, theoretically, it could just be Oregon State versus Washington State. Winner gets an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament.
So there won't be a Pac-12 championship game because you have to have X number of teams to play a championship game. So just the winner between their game, they could go. Are you telling me they could go 1-11? But the one win be over the other, and they could make the college football playoffs?
I don't know about the college football playoffs, but I believe like in basketball and baseball or any of the other sports, yeah, the winner of that between the two of them would get an automatic bid to the tournament. So I'm looking forward to that. They should play like a 7-game series just to decide that.
It's going to be crazy, but yeah. And then next year, when you have all of this coming over to the Big Ten, it's going to be very exciting. I think it's going to be exciting. I think the Big Ten actually needs this. I do not want to see the Pac-12 dissolve. I didn't want to see that go away either. But here's the thing. It did. It's gone. It's history. That ship has sailed. And those 4 members are going to be a part of the Big Ten, which I think it's great for the Big Ten because the Big Ten needs some new life, some new blood. This Ohio State, Michigan, with a little bit of Penn State sprinkled into it for the last decade, it's old. I'm done with that. So I think bringing in these teams, it is going to force different styles of play. It's going to force more excitement. You're just bringing a lot in to watch. And like I said, a team like Indiana, there's never been the excitement in the football program that there is right now going into a season without, coming off of something. In 19, they had, oh man, it was like, oh my God, that was incredible. Looking forward to the next season with 2020 with Michael Penix. There was a lot of excitement going into that year, but they had something to build off of. This team had jack to build off of, except for Kurt Cignetti. And man, oh man, I don't know if he's going to do it or not. But let me tell you, he's certainly writing the checks that he's going to be liable to cash next season because he's taking in every moment. He got introduced at the IU basketball game the other night, and he started to just wave, but the fans gave him a big rousing welcome, and then he just stands up and just gives the hands up. He is going to bring energy way different than Tom Allen. Tom Allen brought a lot of energy, but this guy's bringing moxie energy, and I think that's going to be a huge difference. But he's bringing in so many guys that are from mid-majors that's going to be the test, where previously the team had brought in so many transfers from Ole Miss, from Auburn, from UCLA. We're not seeing this. It's Troy. It's James Madison. It's Ohio. And I'm not saying that these guys can't play, but it's like every bit of them are coming from that layer. But these guys have had success, so we'll see how they can do with that. But it's, man, the fact that I keep saying this over and over, Travis, the sheer fact that we're talking about football in January, IU football rather, in January is mind-boggling. Oh, of course, we lost him.
Hey, Travis, you may not know, but yeah, your audio kind of is crapping out on us, unfortunately.
Yeah, we lost you there. We can't turn that off, and we can get you back on there. But yeah, it's still, I can't believe it, and I'm looking forward to it just to see how it goes. It's going to be exciting because, like you said, Indiana is going to host not only the national champion, reigning national champion, the national champion, the runner up to the national championship. They still have Ohio State on their roster, and they go to play in the Rose Bowl against UCLA. Those 4 things alone that's gigantic. That's a third of the season right there. But those are huge moments, and that's not even mentioning any other big games. But that's the kind of excitement I'm talking about coming. The Big Ten, it's going to be very interesting to see. Nebraska is on the rise. I love what Matt Rule's doing at Nebraska. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Ryan Walters can do at Purdue in his second season. And so Iowa's the team that I'm like going, oh boy, where does Iowa go? Because their defense has been tremendous and their offense has been just as ugly.
Iowa football, man. I do not get how they won 10 games this year. I don't understand it. They got shut out 3 times, and I think they said that anybody else who got shut out 3 or more times in college football, the most that they won was 3 games. And Iowa really probably should have won 11 if you look at that Minnesota game. I mean, if that punt return is not called back, you have Iowa going 11-3, where the only 3 games that they lost would be points where they did not score at all. So it'll be interesting to see. And they don't seem to be in any hurry whatsoever to hire an offensive coordinator. So what the hell is going on there with that? I mean,
we shall see, man. We shall see. But I am so looking forward to tonight's national. I'm about to go get some popcorn. I'm about to go get everything ready so I can be ready for tonight's game. What does that thing kick off? Probably
very late,
11,
most likely.
I was going to say probably like 11 p.m. Probably.
It's a 7:30 kick. It's pretty reasonable for a Monday.
Oh wow! That's 4:30 on the West Coast.
I think they're playing in Houston, so I guess that'll be 6:30 Houston time. I believe they're in Central Time Zone.
Yes, yeah, but that's 4:30 out. For those folks out in Seattle.
That's true. If you're planning on watching it as a Washington fan, you better hope you can get off work early or something, or maybe you took off today.
Dude, Washington's in the national championship game. That will not be a problem. The bars will be full in Seattle and all the way around. So. But looking forward to that. What's up next for you, man?
Purdue's at Nebraska tomorrow night. Going to be fighting a blizzard. So I know that we're starting to look forward to the rest of the Big Ten basketball season. And I know Ryan Walters is cleaning up in the transfer portal. I believe he's gotten 3 guys from Georgia that are looking really, really promising. So they have one of the top portal classes, according to Rivals, in the country. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because the schedule next year is going to be incredibly difficult. They got to play Ohio State and Michigan. They have to, I believe they host Penn State. They host Oregon, and they have to go to Oregon State. And they get Oregon State and Notre Dame for good measure on the non-conference. So he's going to be tested next season, and if he can get Purdue to a bowl game next season, it'll be a sign that things are going in the right direction.
It certainly will, and looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to Big Ten football next year. I think it's going to be way better. Well, it couldn't be much worse than it was this year. That's for certain. But thanks a lot, brother. We appreciate you as always, and look forward to doing it again next time.
All right. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
You betcha. Travis Miller joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. John Boy, what is on the schedule for tomorrow? Of course, Mike DeCourcy will be joining us.
That's right. We should also hear from our friend Chronic Hoosier, and we'll see what else. We may have one more that will get figured out for us. But yeah, still got a few minutes left on today's edition. But yeah.
Looking forward to that. Let's see. Congratulations to I've already lost it. Who did win the bowl picks already going into that?
Oh, is Jared Wolf won the bowl picks?
Man.
Or are you talking about the regular season winner?
No, the college football bowl media. I want to see, because that was pretty close going into that. Oh God, I finished 23-19. That's barely over 500, and that's straight up picking.
That's true. Next year, I'll hop in, but we've got to do against the spread next year.
Yes.
Whoever organizes it.
Jared won by 1 game over Drew Jones and Brent Prescott. No, Brent, Bill Evans, Caleb Boggs, just a game back of that, but it was tight at the top. Jared, though, comes through with a 29-13 record. So congratulations. We will be working on getting all that stuff set out before. So I've got to get the stuff sent out for the regular season winners and all of that. So I'm going to get busy on that. Looking forward to it. And then tomorrow, of course, we're going to be talking about the national championship game tonight and previewing tomorrow's Indiana game as they are on the road in Piscataway in a game that when I call it a must win, it's not that the season's going to come to an end. It's a must win to me if you have eyes on making the tournament. You cannot lose these games because there are too many games that are going to be way more challenging that you're probably not going to be able to win. There are not a lot of road games that you go playing that you're going to play against where teams have a losing record in the Big Ten. They're just not as good as last year. Michigan has a win in the Big Ten. They're in front of Rutgers. That's why I say that I call it a must win, because you go to places like Michigan State. No, you don't have to do that this year, luckily.
But either way, like, you still, when people say you got to steal a couple road wins, you've got to beat the bottom of the barrel. You've got to beat the bottom 2 or 3 teams on the road and win. I don't want to say all your home games, because obviously Indiana already lost to Kansas, but you got to win nearly all of your home games, steal 2 or 3 road games, and maybe more than that, depending on what your goals are. But Rutgers is definitely one that Indiana needs to find a way to win for, not only for this season, but you got to get the Rutgers road monkey off your back eventually.
Well, is Indiana going to win every home game? Big Ten. Are they going to win every Big Ten road game? I mean, a Big Ten home game.
I mean, they probably won't, and they likely won't even be favored in all their home games. They weren't even favored against Ohio State this past weekend.
Let's say they go 9-1
in the Big Ten at home.
At home. All right, but on the road, you have to go. They've already gotten 1 road win.
Yeah, they beat Michigan. I wish I had the schedule right in front of me.
If you get 2 road wins, that just makes you 2-8, and if that's it. But by doing that, that makes you 11-9 in the Big Ten, if you're able to accomplish that. And I think Indiana has to go
either way.
Well, I'm just saying, at minimum, they have to go. You have to have a winning record in the Big Ten this season.
Yeah, that's fair.
Tournament. So that's what my point is. Let's say if they lose a single home game, that makes them a 9-1 in home. But if they can, even if they go 2-8 on the road in the Big Ten, that makes them 11-9 overall, and at least puts them in a position that is not automatically ruled out. Maybe they have to win 12 games. We'll see. But this team is getting better, and Xavier Johnson is a big get back for them. We'll talk about that a lot more tomorrow when everybody joins us. Like I said, Mike DeCourcy, Chronic Hoosier, and we'll see what else we can get brought up for you. And, of course, lots of results from tonight's national championship game. Big thanks to Greg Rakestraw, Don Fischer, Dustin Dopirak, John, the producer, and most importantly, each and every one of you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here, and look forward to doing it again tomorrow by the good grace of you guys. So until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.